Something huge is happening in Vancouver right now. It's a story that's completely recharting the city's future. We're talking about a historic agreement that's been years in the making, but what it all means is just starting to become clear. So let's break it down and get into what this really means for everyone.
So let's start here with a view of Vancouver. You see the glass towers, the ocean. It's a familiar sight. But this city is built on a really deep and complicated history. And at this very moment, that history is colliding with the present in a way we haven't seen before.
Okay, remember this date, February 20th, 2026, because on that day, something happened that basically changed the entire legal foundation of the city. The ground rules for how Vancouver operates, yeah, they were rewritten.
So what exactly went down? Well, after over a decade of tough negotiations, the Musqueam First Nation and the Government of Canada finally signed a series of landmark agreements. And believe me, this wasn't just another press conference. This was a fundamental shift in the recognition of rights. To really get the weight of this, we have to be super clear on this one key legal idea: Aboriginal title. Look, we're not just talking about the right to use the land for things like hunting or fishing. The courts have been very clear on this. Aboriginal title is a right to the land itself. It's fundamentally about ownership. Now, this is where it gets really important. See that word? Unextinguished? That's the whole ballgame. What this agreement says is that the Musqueam's rights and their title to the land were never legally signed away. They were never sold. So this isn't the government giving them new rights. It's the government formally acknowledging rights that have always existed, and which, by the way, are protected under Canada's own constitution. All right, so what's actually in this thing? It's not just one document. It's actually a whole package of 3 different agreements that are all designed to work together. Let's unpack them. So the whole deal is made up of these 3 pieces. First, you got the really big one, the Rights Recognition Agreement. That sets the whole foundation. Then there's an agreement on stewardship and marine management, which is all about shared decision-making for the local waters. And finally, a Fisheries Agreement, which helps support the Musqueam's role in managing the fisheries. And this really gets to how it's all supposed to work. This is not a final one-and-done treaty. Think of it more like a legally binding roadmap. It sets up the rules for an ongoing nation-to-nation relationship that's meant to be built out piece by piece over time. Of course, the second this news dropped, one question just exploded and started causing a ton of anxiety for people. What on earth does this mean if you own property in Vancouver? And look, this anxiety didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's being fueled by a massive court ruling that came down just a few months earlier in August 2025. In a case with the Cowichan tribes, the BC Supreme Court said that Aboriginal title is a senior legal interest, meaning it can actually exist over privately owned land. That ruling sent absolute shockwaves through the real estate world. And that brings us to the core tension of this whole story. On one side, you have the official word. Musqueam Chief Wayne Sparrow has been perfectly clear. He said Musqueam is not coming for anyone's private property. The federal government is saying the same thing, but on the other side, there's this very real concern in the market that while this isn't a treaty, it could be used to strengthen legal claims down the road, and that's creating a whole lot of uncertainty. As sudden as all this might feel, it really didn't happen overnight. This is the final chapter of a legal and political story that's been unfolding for decades. You know, when you look at this timeline, it all starts to make sense. You can see how huge Supreme Court cases way back in the 80s and 90s, like Guerin and Sparrow, laid all the legal groundwork. Then things just sped up like crazy recently. Musqueam initialed a self-government agreement, then you had that game-changing Cowichan ruling, and boom, it all culminates in these agreements. Every step led to the next one. So the deal is signed. The ink is dry. What now? Well, the framework is there, but honestly, some of the biggest, messiest questions are still totally up in the air. And here's the thing, it's what isn't in the deal that's so crucial. First off, where was the province of BC in all this? They were completely absent from the talks. This was a deal between the Musqueam and the federal government, period. Then you've got the fact that the actual map, the geographic boundaries of the title, still has to be negotiated. And how exactly do you weave traditional Musqueam law into Canadian law? And what about overlapping territories with other First Nations? These are massive, unresolved issues. Which really brings us to the fundamental challenge here. It's a tough, profound question for absolutely everyone involved, for the Musqueam Nation, for all levels of government, and for the millions of people who call this city home. When you get right down to it, what we're all watching here is the legal and cultural fabric of a major Canadian city being rewoven in real time. This image kind of says it all, right? It's the blending of ancient identity and law with the steel and glass of today. And the story of this new foundation? It's far from over. In fact, it really feels like it's just getting started.